leading big ministry areas all over the country, and all of us make some commitments to each other around how we're going to operate as a team. We call it the I Promise document, because these are promises we make to each other around how we're going to function and operate in our relationships as a team, as a church. And one of those is, I promise to trust those in authority over me. In fact, I want to read a little bit of this to you. This is based on Hebrews 13:17. We say, I promise to trust those in authority over me. Even when a decision is made that I don't understand, I will remember that I don't have all the information nor the responsibility and insight that God gives those in leadership. Now, I've got a lot of bosses at Crossroads, actually. I mean, you might think because I am a campus pastor that, I lead this campus, and yes, that's true, but I've got bosses. So Kathy Beecham, she leads all of the campus pastors, so she's my direct boss. We have an executive pastor and leadership team, and I'm under authority there as well. And then, of course, with Brian being the senior pastor, Brian is an authority, a spiritual authority, and an organizational authority to me. And so you guys know Brian. You interact with Brian, at least from a stage to screen or whatever, on a weekly basis. So I just want you to stop and think of what it would be like if Brian was your boss. Just, yeah. Actually, Brian is great to work for most of the time. But it's probably not surprising that sometimes we disagree. I had a situation happen recently that kind of brought this to mind, and it brought back the I promise, the commitment that I make around how I'm going to operate under his authority as my leader. And so there's a big ministry area that I was responsible for, and we were doing a huge volunteer recruitment event. And one of the things we had done is we had a caterer coming in. We were going to do some finger foods, give people kind of a chance to meet and connect, and then we were going to cast a vision and kind of invite people into this vision. So it was a really big deal. I've been working on this for months and months and months. Had this on his calendar for months and months and months, and mine as well. Well, he goes off on vacation, and so do I. And one of the things that happened while I was away on vacation is the date of our week of prayer and fasting changed. It was going to be 1 week in August, and it kind of moved up a week earlier, which meant it was the same week as this big event that I was doing, that I was leading. And we have a principle during the week of prayer and fasting that even if we have events here, we don't do food. And yet, I was thinking, man, this is a change that happened while I was gone, and I really think that for this event that I'm doing, it's the right thing to have some apps and kind of give people a chance to connect around that. I think that'll be helpful for the experience. And yet I knew that Brian might have a different opinion. And so the thing that made this kind of even more challenging is I knew I wasn't going to get to talk to him about this until the morning of the event. So I was like, man, this is going to be challenging. And so I go in and I kind of make the case and tell him, hey, this thing was on the books for a long time. Week of prayer and fasting moved, and that's why we have this, and I think it should be an exception. I think we should go in this direction and still have kind of apps and give people an opportunity to engage. And so Brian's thinking about it, he's talking with me about it, and he's like, man, you can't do it. You can't do it. And let me tell you, I kind of anticipated that, obviously, that would be his response. And so I had a chance to kind of role play what would my responses be. And so I'm just going to give you an example. So one of the responses that I could have had was, what do you mean I can't do it? Right? What do you mean I can't do it? Listen, this is something that's out of my control. This is the right thing. I believe in this. Man, we need to do this, and kind of push back. That's one of the responses I could have. There are any number of other responses I could have, but I had kind of predetermined in my mind that I'm going to fulfill my commitment with I promise. And even though I thought it was the right choice to still have food for this event, when he made that decision, I said, great, then we'll pull it. We'll pull it. And the reason is I believe what Hebrews 13:7 says at the very end of this verse. It says, let your leaders lead you with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you. And so that was an opportunity for me to follow well. Not necessarily an easy opportunity to do that, but it's one that I knew would bear fruit. So how do we do this? How do we follow well? Well, there's a verse I go to regularly as a guidepost on this in my life. 1 Peter 5:5-7, which says, likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. So how do we follow well? I think this verse says we follow well first with humility. You know, this verse says, clothe yourself with humility. When I think about clothing yourself, there's a choice involved, right? It doesn't say you either just are humble or you aren't humble. It says you choose to be humble. So when we engage in situations with people who are following us, where we need to come under their authority, we choose humility first. And then secondly, we do it through faith. You'll notice it says, humble yourself not under the hand of your leader, but under the hand of God. I mean, let's just get to brass tacks, right? None of us has a problem following anyone until the person we're following makes a decision we disagree with. And when that happens, whether that happens in a marriage, whether that happens with your parents, as you're being led by your parents, at that point, as a follower of Jesus, we have to ask ourselves, do I trust God enough that his goodness and his care for me is enough that he will be with me as I follow this decision that maybe I don't agree with, that this leader has made? See, it really becomes a matter of faith. And I think that's why this verse talks about anxiety. I mean, I don't know about you, but it kind of seems like he's talking about being humble and leaders, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, and by the way, cast your anxieties on God. Well, I think those are totally connected, because here's what I've learned in my life. I am most anxious about the things where I have the least control. I am most anxious about following leaders that I don't think I can control. I am most anxious about submitting to authorities that I don't think I can control. And if I know that, then the more that I trust God as I follow those authorities, godly authorities, then I believe it reduces my anxiety. I don't know if you struggle with being anxious at work. I don't know if you struggle with being anxious maybe in other relationships where you're being led, but I would just submit to you that maybe one of the ways that anxiety actually can be an indicator of what God wants to do in your life is it's an invitation to follow. It's an invitation to trust God and trust the godly leadership that he's put in your life. So I'm going to give you a couple practical to-dos on this one. Number one, do your job. One of the best ways we follow well is we simply do the job we're asked to do. So if you're being led at school, if you're being led at work, and someone's asked you to deliver on something, deliver on that thing. That's a way that we follow well. Number two, give up control. Give up control. Now, I want to give you a question, and I'm going to challenge you to ask people who are leading you this question this week. And the question is simply this: does leading me make your life easier or harder? That could be a dangerous question to ask in some context, right? Does leading me make your life as a leader easier or harder? But I want you to be willing to ask that question and then to be quiet and listen to the response. Because what you hear on the other side of that will be of advantage to you. So when you submit and you obey and you follow well, it is to your advantage. And that's why we thrive when we follow well. And the Jay-Z song, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you guys there. I'm sorry, yes. We thrive when we celebrate. I'm sure we've all had this experience. Have you ever been at a restaurant where people from the restaurant, whenever there's a birthday, they come and they sing happy birthday? Anybody ever seen that? I don't know about you, but those always feel like more of an assault than a celebration. I mean, and the reason is there's no spirit. They do it like 80 times a day. So it's like, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. It just never feels like celebration to me. Maybe I'm the only one. But you know, there's something about celebration that we need to be reminded of. It might sound weird. Like, do we really need to talk about celebration? I think we do. You got to remember, we are the country that leaves the most vacation days on the table anywhere in the world. So I think there's something for us to learn about celebration. In fact, I'm going to give you a litmus test to see if this is an opportunity for you, if this is a place where maybe you can grow. Number one, I want you to think in your life right now about the last time you celebrated something. And birthdays don't count, and Christmas presents don't count. When's the last time you celebrated something? That's question number one. All right, got that? Got that date? Question number two. When's the last time something happened in your life worth celebrating? You got a promotion. You got a job. Parents, you survived the summer. You finished a project. You fixed the car. You took new steps toward growth. You know, my guess is there's probably a gap between the last time something happened in your life that was worth celebrating and you actually celebrating that thing. And maybe you can't even remember. You're really